Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Trong, and today I'm extremely excited to share with you my master plan of an action plan of how I plan to develop a more integrative approach to care and spreading knowledge to my patients. Here, we're going to talk about four of the points that you guys are probably very aware of: the main focus, the information and how I gathered that information, the process in which I am developing the action plan, and lastly, how I plan to utilize the information that I have gathered and moving it forward into the future. So without further ado, let's get started. In this video, we're going to actually be flipping back and forth from a keynote as well as a video conversation. Hopefully this won't bore you so much, and at least it'll give you some insight and more information about who I am, what I do, and hopefully we can share information how we can collaborate and work with each other to help improve acupuncture as a whole. And here we are looking at the master planning of an action plan, pretty much a synopsis of the plethora of things that I need to do, and I'm sure you need to do too. So one of the most common questions that I get in my office here is basically, what can acupuncture do for me, or how can it be done? So when it came to this specific assignment, it was very difficult for me to just look at one particular issue. As my practice, we do general health. Of course, most of it is pain management and wellness in general, but I wanted to make this more about sharing information, spreading knowledge, and pretty much the goal is to roll out content at least once a month for the remaining of the year in various ways. And the different platforms in which I am very happy if you would like to connect with me is on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. I also have a podcast, Road to Wellness, and also on my blog. These are just some of the platforms that I have touched base with and been more active on spreading some of the information that I've gathered. So there are three out of the main platforms that I've shared with you that I'm working on right now. And those are the podcasts, the YouTube channel, as well as the blog. Most of my efforts has been more on the podcast and the blog, just because the information that I have been able to kind of roll out to people has been easiest that way, and it's been easier for me to manage. Of course, I have social media in which I post pretty regularly, but the content there is not very research based. Rather, it is more of just short snippet information of like, oh, things that you could do at home sort of deal. But with the blog, for example, it's a little bit more detailed, and I'll go in a little bit more information of what I do for each of those different platforms. And with the podcast, there's different things that I can talk about, right? This is more about conversation, sharing my thoughts, and giving people more insight into who I am and my personality, as well as other information that would be more helpful for them. Then there's the YouTube videos, in which there we really focus upon tutorials, how we can share some of those exercises. And lastly, the blog is pretty much the details of the nitty-gritty of any of the research papers that we have. So going back to earlier when we're talking about the focus, here I'm trying to spread knowledge and information, and how I'm going to do that is pretty much assessing by understanding, what do people really want to know? So I have kept a diligent log of existing concerns and common issues at my office. And from there, I worked with my team to pretty much, we all kind of work together to pick their brains, get some information and more insight on what kind of information we want to share. Then from there, I do a little bit more research into different resources that are already available. And the different resources in which I have touched base on is basically going into the universities, checking out their webinars, listening in on their integration and their approach to a more holistic way of treating their patients. Stanford, UCSF, UCLA are all great resources for this. And then, of course, developing a little bit of my own little research of conducting a thorough, well, not thorough, as thorough as I can on PubMed, just to see if there's any sort of information out there that I could add into the conversations that I might have on the podcast, any of the YouTube videos, or even in any of the blog posts that I plan to write, and providing good, insightful information and crediting it back to the researchers who obviously conducted the research. And lastly, of course, there's also the Mayo Clinic, the CDC, as well as the National Health Institute. They have, the National Institute of Health, where they would be able to kind of give you a little bit more information of what's the new trend that's out there. And I think that's actually the best way for me anyway to get these resources that are readily available to the public, in which I can also reference back to the patients without having the patients having to click back into PubMed, paying for any sort of subscription in order for them to access information. And the workflow. So here we're going to talk about how I pretty much do the implementation and the processes of gathering the information, and then now how do I deliver it out. So obviously we're getting the answers through the sources, then I delegate the work to my team and pretty much we implement. And when it comes down to this part, it's the most strenuous because we always have to keep track. So I am very keen on making sure we have a plan. We do what's called a sprint planning. We plan out the quarter, and then we decide what sort of information we want to roll out. And then every quarter we do an assessment to see what we're doing, how we could do it better. Then we do a retrospective where we conduct a review of our process. And then the cool thing too is these days, all of the platforms on the internet has analytics in which I could go back and to assess to see how many readers did I get, how many sort of click-throughs. And that kind of gives me insight in terms of perhaps maybe what people are interested in and which platform should I be focusing more on. And that has been one of the most useful tools for me in regard to getting the information out in a platform that is reaching the most people. Thank you so much for watching till the end. My name is Amy Trong, the owner of Road to Wellness, the acupuncture practice in downtown Los Gatos, California. If you would like to connect and work with each other, collaborate in different ways, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll leave out my contact information in the next slide. And also, if you would like to show some support to my little podcast or my YouTube channel or Instagram, please don't hesitate to reach out. My podcast is Road to Wellness, the podcast. Instagram is road.to.wellness. And obviously you can just go straight to my website, road-to-wellness.com, or also my personal blog, amyhtrong.com, as well as my consulting, amytrong.co. Take care, be well, and hopefully we'll get to talk to each other again soon.